And I remember like online, it was like that was the first time I was interviewed by the newspaper, the local one. It was like blowing up online in the Iowa City community. And I was like getting death threats. And like people were saying like go back to your country and stuff like that.
Hello, and welcome back to the Voice for You podcast, where we empower the leaders of today and tomorrow. I'm your host, Jesh Vana. Today, I'm joined by a young leader in our community. She has always had a passion for advocacy, starting at the ripe age of 10 years old as a part of the NSC campaign, campaigning for holidays for Muslim holidays, earning her recognition from Change.org. She has also served as the founder of the West Student Fund, securing more than $10,000 for extracurricular disabilities. Her work has definitely not gone unnoticed, as she was named a 2025 Coca-Cola Scholar. Passionately fighting for change in her community, she is Miss Reem Kamil Kirja. How are you doing today, Reem?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well myself. Thank you for asking. It's a sunny day outside. The birds are chirping. It's always good, especially during the summer. It's very nice to be outside.
Definitely.
So before I start this interview, tell me a little bit about yourself, your hobbies, your passions, and who you are as a person.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Reem Kamil Kirja, like Josh said, and I'm an immigrant from Sudan. I'm Sudanese Egyptian, and I'm also American. And so I have that like tri-identity going on. I came to the United States when I was about 2 years old with my family, and since then my parents have always instilled this very specific quote in me, which is instead of me, think we. So whatever activities I do, whatever problems I see, I always have to think about how I can uplift myself, how I can grow myself alongside growing my community as well. And so that really instilled in me the mindset of community growth. And as you can see, all my activities are towards making sure that my community is getting better alongside me.
Definitely, definitely. You are very passionate. Like I said, you have started fighting for change since 10. Like you hit double digits and you started fighting for what you believe in, which is truly, truly passionate. Like when I was 10, that's like fifth grade. I was playing basketball outside every day. I didn't really see the world as the world. I still saw it with like rainbows and sunshines. But the fact that you were able to make a change, especially at that young of an age, is definitely crazy. And obviously, you are continuing. 8 years in, continuing the fight for justice in our own community, because there's always something that can always be changed, for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely.
So before I start my interviews, I like to ask a, icebreaker question, more lighthearted question to get to know you as an individual outside of your, work that you have done. So if you could have one movie to describe your life, what would it be and why?
One movie to describe my life. Okay. I don't watch a lot of movies, but okay, I would say like Avatar. Like the one with the blue people.
Yes, yes.
I would say Avatar. I would say Avatar, The Way of Water, not the first one. Or maybe the first one. I don't know. But it's this continuous fight against injustice, against colonization, against others saying our story, and making sure that we are able to have our voices heard. I think that's my life story.
Definitely, definitely. Would you say you're more of a book person or?
I think, honestly, yeah, I think I am more of a book person.
Definitely. I mean, do you have a book that you can say that you can tailor to your life?
Okay. I would say this is such a cliche answer, but 1984 by George Orwell. It's so good, and I feel like it really just like showcases the theme of censorship, but also what's it called? Like nationalism and how skewed that can be towards a specific topic that the government wants you to follow. So everyone should read that, definitely. It's so good.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I've had to read Animal Farm for school, like many other students have had to, because it is very, like, a lot of students, like in eighth grade. I think it's just like the same curriculum for everyone, because I know everybody in eighth grade specifically, not eighth grade, yeah, eighth grade specifically, they read The Outsiders at some point.
Right.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
just like weird. Like we're all from different areas. We all read The Outsiders at the exact same time. Like
Right.
there's got to be some like cult or something going around, like the English language arts cult, you know. But I remember we had to read Animal Farm in ninth grade. Obviously, that was the same thing. It was a symbolistic view of what was going on in Russia in like the early 1900s, but instead with animals on a farm.
Hmm.
It was still a very serious book. I'll be honest. It was very, very serious. Those animals, killer. Definitely.
Right.
Definitely. So, obviously, you actually graduated last night. First off, congratulations for that. It is a big step, a stepping stone in life. And as a senior that has graduated, you obviously have committed to a college. So, what school have you committed to? And what about that college, attracted you to commit there?
Yeah, of course. So I'm officially committed to Georgetown University, specifically the Walsh School of Foreign Service. And I really want to go into diplomacy, policy creation, and I'm currently on a pre-law track. So being in DC and having access or like being like 5 minutes away from the Capitol building is really what Georgetown is all about. And they're so good at preparing you for that law track, for that diplomacy track, for that policy track. And so I think that's really what attracted me to Georgetown, and just like the fact that the community is so close knit. Like I think I saw this joke online where it's like, you guys need to get off of campus more. Just like, I actually really like that. And so I think these are like the major things that attracted me to Georgetown.
Definitely. Georgetown is a top school for, just pre-law in general. It doesn't matter what law you go into. Georgetown is a top school to go there. And obviously you are committed to Georgetown, meaning that you do have a lot, lined up for yourself in the future. So yeah, definitely. So obviously, getting to Georgetown is not no easy feat at all. You have to have extracurriculars and, a passion to back that up, which you definitely have shown, in the past 8 years, starting your advocacy journey at the very early age of 10 years old. So what made you develop, especially at such a young age where kids are still, playing outside, running around? Like I said, I was playing basketball every day. I was still dreaming about being an NBA player as a kid like then. So what made you develop a passion for advocacy, especially at such a young age?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And for me personally, I think it's the fact that I came to the United States at age 2, but I would continuously go back to Sudan. And so I remember my schooling always being interrupted by protests and things like that. And I think just growing up around those very passionate people who fought for justice and who were usually punished for trying to fight for justice, I think that really opened my eyes to the power that an individual's voice can have, and also how it can actually be used as a weapon. And so from there, I kind of like just tried to always think about, okay, like how can I continue bettering my community? How can I make sure that, I'm really engaged in this justice seeking method? And at around 10 years old, that was when, which is funny actually, because I've been going to school in the United States since like kindergarten. But that was the first time where I was like, okay, wait, we have a break for Christmas, but we don't have a break for Eid. We also don't have anything recognizing Ramadan. So like, what's going on? We have a Halloween parade, but we don't have anything that acknowledges the amount of Muslim people that live in Iowa City, Coraville, and North Liberty, which are all the cities that my district encompasses. And so that was when I spoke to my friend about it, and I was like in the bus, and I was like, I just really don't like this. I don't know what's going on. And the next day I just took all of the Muslim people I could find. I'm like, hey, you want to go walk with me? And it was just this huge crowd of people, and we were all just walking down the hallway, and I was right in front of them, right? And we were all just chanting, even remember what we were chanting, but I think you can just imagine just little squeaks talking, because we were so tiny, right?
Yeah.
And so then we went to the principal's office, and we all just sat down, and we were we really don't like what's going on. We're not being recognized. We feel ousted. There's a table and we don't have a seat at it. And so then after that, my friend and I wrote a speech for the school board, and we went up to the school board. We got a lot of other people to come read it with us, but it was us, we wrote it and we started it and stuff. And we brought all those other people to showcase just how big and how diverse of a community we are, and how we don't feel seen. And so we read the speech, and then I gave them a little gift, and I'm thank you so much. And so then I went home, and I'm now we're gonna have a break for Eid. I'm so excited. that did not happen, like at all. I was so disillusioned, and that definitely was not how it went. They voted on it right away, and it was everyone on the board said no, except for the one Black person on the board. And so I was like, okay, we have a lot more work to do. And so then my friend moved, and it was just me. And so every month I would like send email updates. I would go to school board meetings. I would ask like, hey, like what's going on? How is this progressing? Are we going to be able to do this? And I did that for 3 years and nothing happened. I was trying to play it by the book. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to take this to the media. I'm not going to do anything like that. You know, I'm just going to plead with you.
Yes.
Pleading didn't work. And so I had to take the next step. I started a change.org petition, and that got about 7,000 supporters in like, I don't know, like 3 months, something like that. And I reached out to Representative Dave Jacoby. I got his support. He spoke directly to the superintendent of the district. I got the support of former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. We also had the support of Representative Levin of Oz. And so we had that political push.
Definitely.
And then for the media themselves, I was like, you know, I remember there was an interview and they were talking to me about like interviewing the district and stuff and seeing how this is gonna go. And I told them, interview the district however many times you need to really push that media like pressure.
Attention,
you
yeah.
know? Exactly. I remember I got interviewed by like the Associated Press, Seattle Times, KCRG, Press Citizen, and Al Jazeera, which was like
Yes.
big
Yes.
for me. Yeah. And so after that was really when they would like they started listening, you know. And I think for me personally, I'm really glad that they started listening, but I'm ashamed by the fact, or like not ashamed, but I'm
You have to
disappointed.
push for that
Exactly.
long. Yeah.
Exactly. And the fact that when that push came from adults, they were able to listen to it. But when it came from youth, they didn't care.
Exactly.
And so in my last address to them, right before they voted, I remember I told them, you know, the Iowa City School District, a community school district, claims to be a diverse and inclusive district, but to really be able to claim that, we need to revise our calendar. And so then right after that, it was a unanimous yes. And it was the same board with the same people. So I'm just really glad that it happened. And I'm really happy now. Like, that directly affected 16,200 people within the district and a wider community of over 120,000 members of the ICCSD district, whether that be parents and guardians, friends and family, things like that. In Iowa City alone, we have about, I want to say, I don't remember, but we have over 100,000 people. And so it's Iowa City, North Liberty, Coralville, and then outskirts. So you can imagine how many people were impacted by this decision. And I was just really happy that, you know, now Muslim people were being recognized, they were being included. And there were a lot of like op-eds that came out from like adult people. And they're like, you know, like those people that claim that they are activists, quote unquote. And I'm just like, I'm not I'm just someone who brings people's voices, you know? That's all I am. I'm just a catalyst for change. And they also said, you know, they're trying to push in like the church into like this state or whatever. Like, and I'm just like, we're actually pushing for separation of church and state, because we want people to be able to celebrate their holiday outside of school, not inside of school. And you need to give us that opportunity to do that. And so, yeah, that's how it went.
Definitely. That's also a big problem too, especially in like day and age of how, like you said, we're supposed to be a diverse community, but you know, we don't really get that recognition we deserve. You know, I'm not a Muslim myself, but you know, as I'm a Hindu, so I also see these problems day to day. You know, we celebrate Diwali, you know, but we don't get off for those, but we get like week long, like 2-3 weeks off for like Christmas, you know, Halloween. It's not really like, unlike your town where you also do a Halloween parade, you know, we still have to go to school for like Halloween stuff. But my school is a lot of people, there's a lot of Indians, so the Hindus, so we celebrate these holidays too. And every year there's not really like a Hindu like specific holiday, but it's more of a, in India they have multiple different, you know, languages in the country. So I speak Telugu, and we have a holiday in my ethnicity of Telugu called Sankranti, and every year I have to miss school because, you know, I'm at temple the whole day, you know, celebrating, and I have to take an absence for that. And you know, my school board, what they do is they give us the excused absence for religious reasons. So if we have to miss, then but it's like I'm the only one that has to miss that day due to like special circumstances. But I can definitely see where you're coming from, and the fact that you mentioned like when they took action. They took action only because the media, they were pushed by the media. The adults came into like, you got 7,000 people to support you, and then you also had like Iowa representatives and mayors from not even close to Iowa, like New York City, supporting your work. And at that point, anybody is going to have to make that push. They're gonna have to change your mind, because if you have a lot of like, if you have one person against you, then you can fight it. If you have a whole crowd, you can't really do anything about it. And definitely with the you said that the voices of the youth have to be heard more, which before we started recording, you did ask me why I am passionate about this podcast, and that sums up, definitely your stories definitely sums up what I want to get across with this. So 100% I can see where you're coming from. With the NSC, obviously the NSC campaign was mainly for Eid, so did you have that idea of just for Eid, or did you also want to add like Ramadan with it, or like all major Muslim holidays, or?
Yeah, so we actually only have two holidays. We have
Okay.
Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. And then for Ramadan, it's a month-long
Yes.
fasting. And it's a month. And so like it's an actual month in the Islamic calendar.
Yes. Yeah.
And so for that one specifically, we really, by having a break for Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, we were really just trying to push for recognition of Muslim individuals within the district, especially within Iowa. Iowa is a very, very Republican, very, very white state.
Yes.
And so I wanted to make sure that my Muslim peers, my Muslim community, didn't feel like they were other. They didn't feel like they were, like they were part of the actual Iowa community. And so it was really important to make sure that we got that recognition so that people understand, there are Muslims in my class and they're off for that day because they're celebrating, We're not asking people to go educate themselves on Islam and go read the entire Quran. Like, no. We're just asking you to have the bare minimum knowledge, to not have ignorance. And that's really important, to make sure that everyone is able to converse respectfully and open-mindedly.
Obviously, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. Where I'm from, Memphis itself is very diverse. But if you step outside of Memphis and go more into like Tennessee, like Nashville, Knoxville, it is also the same as Iowa, very Republican, very, very white, very rural, a lot of rural towns here. So I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. I don't see that problem personally with especially in Memphis per se, because Memphis is very, very diverse in its culture. I would say it's different from the Nashville and Knoxville area. We have our own separate culture, separate identity. But, having that recognition for other cultures is definitely something that has been fought for in the U.S., not only with you and the NSC campaign, but, just nationwide, because that fight, we are the boiling pot, and, there's a lot of different cultures, and we need to respect everybody equally.
Right. Like, if you notice, there's no national religion for America. There's no national language. And it's because of how diverse America is.
Exactly.
That's how America was built, And we need to continue sustaining that. We definitely do.
Definitely. So obviously, like you said, you've struggled for 3 years to get the trust of the adults. So when you went to the media per se, how did you gain their trust with Al Jazeera and all the people on change.org and all that?
Yeah, so I really just think it's about learning public speaking skills, being confident in what you're saying. I was the captain of mock trial for this year and last year, and what I always told my team is you could be speaking about the importance of pizza to toddlers, and people would trust you if you're saying that with confidence, And so I think it was really just about me learning to have confidence in myself and in the message that I'm trying to bring, and sharing that with the media, with the district, and then honestly just letting the media do their job, letting them do their job, letting my supporters continue speaking out. And that's how we got it. And actually, it's funny. The Iowa City Community School District is the first and only major district within Iowa to have Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha as holidays for Muslim individuals. And I think that in itself is really, like, now it's a testament to them finally listening to youth voices and being, or like willing themselves to do something like that. And I think that's incredible, because it really does take the power of the people to change legislature, to change rules, to change policies within a specific area. But it also does take those individuals that are in charge to listen and to fight for that, and to also like, you know, receive the stigma from that. So especially since we're in Iowa. So I think it's really brave of them to take that decision and to step forward with it and to continue with it.
Definitely. I can see where you're coming from with that for sure. You know, the media is a very powerful tool. You know, we are protected by our First Amendment that the media can do what they want, not with obviously a few restrictions. Obviously, you can't be like crazy with it, but you know, the First Amendment does protect our right to speech, and that is what the media is for. You know, if we use that to our advantage, then, you know, like in your case, it does help. And now, whenever a kid in the Iowa district, you know, gets off for Eid, both Eids, obviously they can see you're the face of the movement for what you have done. So not only do they get to celebrate, you know, at home with their families now because of the work you've done, but now you have that pride. Obviously, you are very prideful for what you have done, that, you know, these families now can celebrate together because of 4 years of hard work and dedication. Like 4 years, that takes an insane amount of passion, an insane amount of time and effort, especially when you're getting rejected and being said no for 3 years in a row. No, definitely. No, I've also done my fair share of change.org petitions, but not at a serious level. It was more of, you know, let me sit next to my friends at lunch type deal, you know, but everybody, it wasn't too serious, you know, it's like simple little. Change.org is the biggest, you know, platform for voices and, you know, change to be made, hence the name change.org. And that also did get you recognition. You were recognized as a 2021 under 25 member of change.org, which is an insane feat. And yeah, definitely. So with, you know, this was a national scale, like change.org was nationally, you know, you got, how did you market yourself out to these people? Did you like send it to family members? Did they send it to other people, or how did that work?
For like the petition?
Yes.
Or right. Okay. So funny story. So I had a QR code I made, and throughout the entire community, I would just like be walking around my neighborhood, walk around like to like public places like the Cornville Public Library. I also had like posters. I would put them all around town. And like while I was walking, I'd like find someone on the street and I'd be like, "Hi, my name is Reem Kirja, and this is a petition I'm doing. Please sign it. You can read more about it on this, like through this link." And then they'd scan it. If they want to sign it, they can sign it. If they don't want to, they don't have to. And so I remember like everywhere I went, like literally my local grocery store, the library, the coffee shops, like everywhere. To the point where my mom was like, "Oh my God," like, oh my God. Like everyone knew there's this little girl showing you a QR code. And like, obviously I had like my face card because I was like, I don't know, like 12, 13, something like that. So like, you're going to break my heart if you don't scan the QR code, you know?
Exactly.
Right. And so I remember there was also like the Cedar Rapids airport. I went around the airport and everyone like scanned the QR code. I distributed it to the workers there. And so like it was really just about like word of mouth from the beginning. And then after that, I made like an Instagram page and like I would like post updates on there. I would also like through change.org, they have like an email app or like a messaging app or something. And then you can send a message to everyone who has signed your petition so far. And I would encourage them to continue distributing the petition. What else? Let me see. Yeah, and so the media honestly really just followed after they saw how many times I was at the board meetings. And then at the end when I was like, I made a change.org petition, just wanted to let you know, blah, 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 to the board, that's when they were like, okay, cool, like let's like ramp this up. This seems like it's gonna be like a movement for change. And so that's really how it got distributed mainly. Obviously like change.org has like the newsletters and stuff like that. I think the petition was in one of those. I can't remember though, but I think it was in one of those. But yeah, and like after everything was done and stuff, yeah, I did get the change.org like top 10 under 25 changemaker of the year in the US, which I was like not expecting. I remember I was literally just doing my chores at home. Like you can see like how, like to me personally, this was just like this is something I need to do for my community. Okay, done. Now I'm done. Cool. But like for other people, it was just like this, whoa, like how did you do that?
Exactly.
Stuff like that, you know? And
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know. I just did it.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a big deal to me at all. And so I think just like that notion of like you did this and like this was like now it's helping so many people. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Definitely. You know, getting such big recognition, like if you're really passionate about something, you know, taking the little steps, you don't realize how big of a change or impact or situation you just put yourself in.
Right.
Just like these tiny little steps, like, you know, making that one decision to go to one board meeting can change a lot. And, you know, once you're done, you look back and then you see the mountains of staircases which you have just climbed. So yeah, definitely. What were your parents like? Were your parents like with you throughout this whole like journey? Like, did your family and friends like support you throughout, or were there any bumps in the road or anything?
Yeah, they definitely did. I think my parents are like, I like to say they're like my biggest supporters. They're my biggest cheerleaders. And like, I love them so much. Like everything and anything I do, they give me so much advice. They like, I remember one time I was like so sad. And this was right after the board meeting, the first one when I was about 10 or yeah, when I was 10. And I remember like online, it was like, that was the first time I was interviewed by the newspaper, the local one. It was like blowing up online in the Iowa City community. And I was like, getting death threats and like people were saying like go back to your country and stuff like that. And so like I was like just like so sad. I was like, why are you saying that to me? Like what? And so I remember my parents were like, do you see like all those like negative comments? Take them, understand them, learn what they're trying to say, tweak them, and apply whatever constructive criticism they're trying to tell you into your into like your campaign. And so I think they really taught me how to be open-minded. They really did. And they also taught me, you know, take rejection and just like continue. Like, you know, rejection is inevitable and it will happen and it will continue happening throughout my life. And I just need to understand that, you know, it's not endgame. I'll be completely fine after.
Definitely, you know, as in a mostly white community, that is something that a lot of people do face, you know, racism. And, you know, that is truly saddening to see that there are full-grown adults sending a 10-year-old death threats.
Right.
Like, what is wrong with that's crazy.
Right. And like I was reading them and I just like did not understand them in the beginning, and then I was like, oh, and I thought they were real. I thought like, oh my god, I'm gonna be dead by tomorrow. And then my mom, like, she explained it to me.
No, that's the same stuff like Jackie Robinson had to deal with when he entered baseball in 1942, and now he's revered as the man who broke the color barrier. So, you know, if someone is sending you that kind of stuff, then that means you are doing something right. Your voice is being heard. And, you know, in your case too, I mean, your voice did get heard, you know. Now you have both Eids off because of the work that you did. And you know, you should really applaud yourself for that. Especially if I was in that same situation, I would have gave up right away. My parents would agree with this statement too. Like, I would have gotten scared and, you know, definitely given up on. But the fact that you had that passion and kept on going truly embodies what a leader, especially a youth leader, definitely should have. So I definitely commend you for that 100%.
Thank you so much. And you know, like, my parents, they definitely were scared. But I think it's just like the death threats and stuff. I think they were so desensitized to it because of how many we've gotten even before this, simply because we're Muslim.
Exactly.
You know, especially in Iowa. And like, I think a lot of people from my community can also talk about the amount that they've received, even like on the street. And I was just like, how do you feel comfortable just yelling that out loud? Like, are you okay? And like, you know, I think it's just really about perseverance and knowing that what you're fighting for is the right thing and continuing. And even like after that, you know, I know right now there are a lot of tensions between, you know, Jewish and Muslim individuals, but I would like to remind everyone, like, for the NIC campaign, we got Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha off, but we also got Yom Kippur off, which is a major Jewish holiday. And so that really just showcases the power in unity, the power in coming together as a community, and not just a community for Muslim people, not just them, but also Jewish people coming together with Muslim people and making positive change in their community.
Definitely. Were there like separate activism situations going on with like Yom Kippur and like Jews too, or is that just like an add-on bonus with
That was an
yours?
add-on bonus.
Okay.
I loved that because the district was talking about, okay, well, if we take like Eid off, then we're gonna have to take off so many other holidays, and people are gonna be like, okay, what about this, and what about this, and what about this? And then I told them, okay, how about that's like a positive thing. What are you talking about? How
Yeah.
about you go and speak to each community that you supposedly represent and ask them, what holidays do you need off? What days do you need to go celebrate? And then, you can like combat that quote unquote problem from the beginning, right? And so one of the communities that they spoke to was the Jewish community. And that's how we were able to get Yom Kippur in there as well.
Nice. That's really nice. Not only helping your own community, but helping other people. That's definitely crazy. Obviously they can't just give off for one community, otherwise the other one's gonna get outraged. And then on top of all that, but I definitely that's truly inspiring. Oh my God.
Right.
Definitely. First off, starting off, getting a whole rally of people to go march to the principal's office itself is a crazy feat. I'll be so honest, especially in elementary school. That's crazy. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. My parents say I've always been like a crazy kid. Like the first in second grade, I I got everyone from recess to come like sit around, like the playground structure. We
Yes.
were all just like crisscross, and these are second graders. They don't sit down. And so like when they were telling me that, I was like, whoa, like what? And so like I was like standing at the top of it, and I was like preaching to them. I was like, we're gonna be awesome today. We're gonna be so good. We're gonna make change. We got this, like in like second grader notion, right? And then they're like, yay, we got this. And then I'm like, whoa, like what?
Definitely. Oh my goodness. Just
Yeah.
having that, I guess you just have that, fiery passion for that, I guess. Not I guess, I know, because of everything you just said. No one without that fiery passion can do such things. Be a lead. You are a leader, definitely not a follower. 100%. But not only do you serve as a leader in your community, especially for the Muslim community, you also do serve in other roles too. You currently are, or maybe not currently, but you serve as the CFO or Chief Financial Officer for Pulse. So could you give more information on what Pulse is?
Yeah, of course. So Pulse is a social justice movement. It's youth-led, and we're still like working out the logistics, but basically we are trying to kind of uplift the Black community within Iowa, especially with how much stigma and stereotypes are applied to them. We're really trying to make sure that, they're able to pursue opportunities that no one tells them about. So we're going to tell them about it, and we're trying to bring the community together. We're really based off of the Black Panther movement, if you know that one. And we're really just trying to, just uplift the community.
Definitely. How did you get this idea? Obviously, since you are the CFO, you have multiple other people part of this organization. So how did you get this idea? How did you join this organization to begin with?
Yeah, of course. So my friend is currently the CEO of Pulse, and he knows about like all like the different things that I do for the community. He knows how passionate I am. And so he reached out to me and he told me, hey, like I would love to have you in this. I really like want to grow this, and I really want it to be a big movement. And so I was like, yeah, sure. And he gave me the CFO position after like interviews and whatever, but the CFO position specifically because of the Weston Fund and like my experience with like raising money, getting grants and stuff like that.
Well, that was actually that's a perfect segue into my next question, as you are the co-founder and co-director, or not co-founder, like founder and director of the West Student Fund, and you were able to secure more than $10,000 for extracurricular accessibility. Remember, that's one with 4 zeros on top. That is $1,000. That's a lot of money raised. And like you said, with like grants and stuff like that. So what were your marketing tactics you used with raising this money for
Yeah,
the
of
West Nile Fund?
course. So we reached out to organizations individually and we told them our mission. We asked them to donate to the West Student Fund. And actually, a big part of my marketing was me. Because I was like, I just did the NSC campaign. You know that this will succeed. So donate to it. And I remember a lot of our donors specifically came from, I got the Student Innovation Award from the Iowa City Business Partnership. And there were obviously like a lot of businesses there as representatives. And so I was so excited to get the award, obviously, but I was not focusing specifically on it. I was going like table by table, row by row. Hi, my name is Reem Kirja. I have the West Student Fund. We'd love if you could donate to it. Here's a QR code to donate. Just write a check to West Student Fund. That's again, West Student Fund. I still remember my pitch. And so we got a lot of the money from there. And then a big portion of our money also came from the foundation for the ICCSD. And I remember like we pitched it to them multiple times, specifically the executive director, because she was very interested in our project. And I was in the extended learning program, and my teacher, she was like, this is a really cool idea that you have, and the ELL, that's what it's called, the ELL for the district would like to talk to you about it. And so I was like, okay, cool, sounds good. And so it was just a bunch of different networking and connections that I was able to make, and that's how we were able to raise that amount of money. And so far, I believe we distributed, we got the $10,000 in the first year. That was all in the span of the first year. And in the second year, we were primarily focusing on distribution, not raising money, because we already got a lot. And so in the second year, I remember we distributed about $4,000 in scholarship. And we sent so many people to Business Professionals of America Nationals, to Debate Nationals. We sent someone on a Greek exchange trip. We sent someone on a China exchange trip. And so all of these different opportunities, those people would have been able to pursue them without getting that scholarship, And last year, or last year and this year, they had a record-breaking number of people attend Business Professionals of America Nationals. And a big portion of that was because of the West Student Fund, because we were able to fund people to go to state and then go to nationals.
Definitely. I should have probably asked this before I asked about marketing tactics, but what specifically is the West Student Funds? Like you said, y'all have a mission statement and all that. So what's specifically the goal of the West Student Fund, and what were you thinking about it going into the creation?
Yeah, of course. So the West Student Fund is an extracurricular-based scholarship for students attending West High School in the Iowa City Community School District. And they are able to apply for it through a very simple application. And they let us know what specific extracurricular they're doing and why they're doing it and how much money they need, how much money they can provide. And through that, we're able to provide a scholarship for them to participate in that extracurricular activity. We believe in equity. We believe that every single individual should have the opportunities that everyone else around them, their peers, have, and that financial struggles should definitely not be an obstacle in them pursuing that opportunity and succeeding. And so that's really what the West Student Fund is all about.
Definitely. And was this a solo team, or do you have a team behind you with the West Student Fund?
Yeah, so we do have an executive board. Our executive board consists of students only, and those students are able to market, they're able to select scholarship individuals and how much scholarship each individual gets. And throughout this entire process, all people who apply are fully anonymous. And so that helps us ensure that they are also, their information is also confidential. The only people who know the identity of those students are the executive director, so me, and then the student family advocates and the counselors at our school. And so that really just helps make sure that the circle is small and that their information is confidential, and it also helps prevent any stigma around needing financial help.
So you don't want to be giving off that information about who these students are, especially if they don't feel comfortable with this information being given. But with the work that you have done for the West Student Fund, did you do the West Student Fund and Pulse at the same time, or?
So I did Pulse after the West Student Fund.
Okay, so is the West Student Fund still ongoing, or was it you just stepped down and then you started with Pulse?
Yeah, so the West Student Fund is still ongoing, and with Pulse, we're still working out logistics and making sure that we have a foundation before full launch. And for the West Student Fund specifically, it's kind of become like my legacy project for my school. Besides like the NSC campaign, I just handed it to new leadership that I fully trust, and it will continue going, and we will continue getting grants from the foundation, from the community. And I'm really, really happy that this will be a permanent thing, or like a permanent sort of resolution for financial barriers that face students at my school.
Well, everyone deserves like you said, the whole point of the West Student Fund, everyone deserves a shot to do what they love. And that is basically the goal behind the West Student Fund, and I definitely can see that, especially because with like state and nationals, as a part of, clubs that do CTSOs like FBLA, I see that there is a lot of money that goes into, even just traveling to these competitions, not even like competing with like food and all that too. It's just straight up just traveling there. Expensive, very expensive. Like even as a state officer, I still have to pay some sort of money for going to FBLA and stuff. And that's the main thing. Like last year when I went for FBLA nationals, that's one thing that scared a lot of people, because they gave us the amount, it was more than $1,000, and that was a very scary point of viewing for in general. Like if even if like for TSA too, I'm part of my school's TSA, even it's in state. Like for nationals, we go to Nashville, which is only a 3-hour drive from here, but it's still $600. So these kind of stuff is like expensive. So the fact that y'all are able to have this initiative to fund these students that don't have these type of, ability to travel and stuff, definitely I can see comes from. And obviously with the work that you've done with West Student Fund, you were able to, transfer that over as the CFO for Pulse. Obviously still working on logistics and all that, so can't really go into like detail on all that because, there's still stuff it's technically not launched yet, but 100%. Also, you serve as the co-director of the Voices of the Nile, working with key organizations like the U.S. Department of State Bureau of African Affairs. So is the Voices of the Nile, is that like a connection between, the U.S. and Africa type deal, or?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And so for Voices of the Nile, what we did was we basically showcased stories, poems, like any type of literature, any type of art from Sudanese individuals currently going through the war, just to make sure that their struggles are not dismissed as an everyday African normality, to make sure that the Sudan's reputation is not simply that of war. War is simply a chapter in its story. There's so much more to that book,
Definitely.
Like really good. Okay, pause. But yeah, so basically that's basically what we do. We just showcase those different Sudanese stories to American audiences. And I was able to get that U.S. Bureau of African Affairs connection because I was a U.S. Senate Youth Program delegate when I was a junior. And so I remember originally I wanted to sit at a different table, and then that table was full. Like someone just like snuck in and like took the chair while I was about to sit on it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like it's okay. Like you can sit there. I don't care. And so I went and sat at a different table, and lo and behold, that was the Bureau of African Affairs table. And I looked to my side. I looked to my other side. I see the deputy director on one side, and I see like another individual, like the correspondent for youth movement, on my other side. And so I was just like pitching everything during that time. I was like, hi, my name is Reem Kirja. There's Voices of the Nile. There's West Student Fund if you'd like to support it. There's this and that and that. And then they were like, we're really interested in Voices of the Nile. And then she gave me her card, and I actually still have her card upstairs. And so that's how we were able to get that connection, and that's how we were able to like do like the different collabs with them. Actually, we have the US Sudan envoy. We're currently trying to plan an event where he's going to be able to speak to like our youth at Voices of the Nile and any other invited members. So we're really excited for that.
Definitely. Is the Voices of the Nile like nationwide, or is it
So currently, since we just started this year, like this school year, we held our first event, I think 2 months ago, I want to say. We had about 400 people in attendance in person. And so that was like so incredible for us. And now we're moving into like, okay, how can we broaden our reach? How can we make sure that this goes national?
Definitely. With a big organization just starting off, you obviously want to go national. That is the end goal for many people. And, connections, networking can go a long way, like you said. If that person did not take your seat, and you wouldn't have never met the people of African affairs, which goes perfectly with what the Voices of the Nile works
Right.
with. And then the other side, the youth affairs, like you are a youth member yourself, and they work with youth affairs, like hand in hand.
Right. I was so surprised. And then I like remembered, like I was trying, like it just brought me back to this quote where it's like, you try to make a plan for yourself, but like Allah is the best of planners. And so I'm like, really, like
That
he
is a
just
tough
led me
quote.
there. And then that's what happened.
That is a tough quote. I'll be so honest. That is no, that's definitely, I like to sum up that quote in one word, which is fate. Fate plays a massive role. If it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen. If it's not, then there's a reason behind everything you do. And whether that reason is good or bad, you know, it happened for a reason. And the reason you were able to make this connection with the Department of State Bureau of African Affairs was because you were a 2024 U.S. Senate Youth Program delegate, one of two members to represent Iowa with the work that you've done, obviously. So, how do you believe this experience, not only with working with now helping with the Voices of the Nile, how do you believe that experience helped with, developing your outlook on, what you want to do in college or just you yourself as a person?
Yeah, so I think it really just instilled in me self-confidence and knowing that my voice is important and how can I make it heard? And even if it's not heard, how can I make sure that it still makes a powerful change, whether that be community-wide or nationally? I think it's really all about instilling in yourself that mentality that as I grow, how can I grow my community with me? Like I said, that instead of me think we quote from my parents. And going to Georgetown, I'm really excited to see where that specific location takes me, especially like with how many connections I can make there, how many programs I can join. I know there's like which is like CAIR, which is the Center for American like Muslim Relations or something like that. And I remember they put like an article up about me when the NSC campaign happened, and their headquarters is actually in DC. And so I'm really excited to see like, okay, like how can I work with them to continue furthering like the different programs I have. Even like at Georgetown currently, a program, like I'm starting a project under Georgetown in collaboration with my friend who's currently going to Harvard. And we're starting it under the United Nations, full support of resources and things like that. And so I think really just putting yourself out there, marketing yourself for who you are, for what your passions are, and also staying true to your roots will put you like it will push you so far, and fully believing that God has a plan for you and that that plan will work out, definitely work out.
100%, 100%. If you don't have passion, it's not going to work. And, fate is fate. It leads to what happens, and it can be a good thing or a bad thing, but you just got to take everything as a blessing in disguise and just move on with life, because if you stay there and sulk, then it's not going to benefit you in any way whatsoever.
Right.
Definitely. But earlier we were talking about how the media played a big role in your advocacy journey with the NSC campaign, which is ironic now that I speak about it, because you serve as the spokesperson for Z Hive Media, hosting webinars nationwide with 500 attendees each time, which is crazy because you were just talking about how the media plays a big role. And did that experience with the NSC campaign and seeing how much media help you, like, push you towards working as a spokesperson for Z Hive Media? What is Z Hive Media to begin with?
Yeah, so basically is an organization that works within like the media realm, storytelling, acting, things like that. But it also is an organization that tries to empower youth, specifically female-led change. And right after the NSC campaign, this was like before the West Student Fund, before USSYP, before Coca-Cola, they reached out to me, and I was in ninth grade. they reached out to my principal, then my principal forwarded them to me, and they were like, we would love to work with you. We have a youth board, and I joined that youth board, and through there I became the spokesperson for their organization. So every webinar they hold, every leadership event they hold, I'm there, and I'm able to introduce the different guests and interview them like live in front of so many people, which is usually so nerve-wracking, but it's also so rewarding to be able to share those voices. And then finally, right after that, we have a Q&A segment where people are able to actually share the different movements that they're trying to create or the different programs like they're trying to implement in their community. And through my experiences, I'm able to share with them, okay, well, you should pivot there, or you should do this, or you should do that. And so really, like I said earlier, I don't see myself as an activist. I see myself simply as a catalyst for change. That be giving advice, whether that be creating change myself,
Definitely. Not everyone's that's probably something everyone can say. No one sees themselves as an activist, or that's what the outside perceives you as an activist. I perceive you as an activist, but in reality, everyone's just a catalyst for change, like you just mentioned. So definitely, like you said, being a spokesperson, makes you the face of Zihad Media, and especially with what you said about how they like to emphasize youth, especially women in youth. That makes you the face. That makes you a face. There's obviously going to be other spokespeople with you. But it makes you a face for change, especially with organizations like Zhive Media. But one thing that I recognized while you were discussing everything, all the work that you have done, is that your culture, being a Muslim, being a Sudanese, Egyptian, and American, that helps you shape yourself into the person you are. So how do you personally believe your culture has played a big role in who you are as a person and what you want to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah, I think my culture is the foundation of everything I've done. It definitely is. Like, I grew up in Sudan. In Sudan, we have over 500 different ethnic groups, even though we're a Muslim majority country, so many different ethnicities reside within Sudan. And so through that in itself, I was able to learn how to interact with people of different backgrounds, how to have an open mind, how to make sure that I'm interacting respectfully with them, especially if I disagree with their viewpoints. And I think that's what makes Sudan so unique. Sudan specifically translates to land of the blacks. And, we are black, but there are so many different types of black there, And so I think really just acknowledging my culture, learning more about it, ensuring that I'm applying it to whatever program or like project or whatever that I do it really just brings me back to my roots of diversity, of open-mindedness, and of respect.
Definitely. What is in your opinion, your favorite part about your culture?
My favorite part about my culture is the food.
Definitely.
It's definitely the emphasis on food, the emphasis on togetherness. Like, you can never not get good food when you're in a Sudanese household.
100%. What is your favorite Sudanese dish?
That's a hard question because in like Arab culture and stuff, we debate all the time of like who made what. Like, no, that's Egyptian. No, that's Iraqi. And I was just like, I don't know. I just like the food.
Definitely. That's the same thing with me and India. Indian food's like very diverse. Like I said, there's multiple different regions of India, so you can't really like say like what specifically is your favorite, but food, especially, I know a lot of people nowadays enjoy food. I am a foodie. Everything except beef and pork, obviously, due to religious reasons. But, I'll eat anything else. Except the only thing that I won't, like, physically eat is eggplants. I cannot eat.
Yeah, no. I have to, like, agree with you on that.
That's the only thing I
Plants are not
can't.
it.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can't eat. Everything else, I will take a try. This is controversial. I didn't mention this before, but growing up, I was not the biggest fan of chocolate. I didn't like chocolate, growing up as a kid, but I've been getting more fond to it. I still can't eat dark chocolate. I don't like dark chocolate. White chocolate, I will eat. I love white chocolate. And milk chocolate is like, food is definitely something that brings people together, feeling of togetherness, and who doesn't like good food at the end of the day?
Right,
Uh,
right.
you get
Actually, like, funny story, my mom, like, my sister was born when I was about 3 years old, and I had never tried any candy, any chocolate, anything like that until I was about 3 years old. And so that kind of like made me like, do I really want to eat that candy? Like, I'm not a big dessert fan.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, definitely. I wasn't a big chocolate guy, but I will eat normal candy. I would say I am a sweet tooth, which is kind of ironic, but
Yeah.
I am a big sweet tooth guy. If you give me, I will drink a sweet tea. Iced sweet tea? I will. That's usually what my go-to drink is. Like if I just go to a restaurant, especially in the South, because like in the North, sweet tea's not a big thing. I've never been to like the North in a long time, so who knows? Maybe if I order a sweet tea, they will give it to me. Maybe I will have to try that. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Is sweet tea a big thing in Iowa? Because it is like more like Midwest rural. So
Yeah, I would say honestly, I don't really know. Like when I go to like restaurants and stuff, usually what I order is either like, wait, okay, I can't say this out loud because I don't know if like Coca-Cola owns it or not, and I don't want to like competing brands and stuff. But I will say I like water.
definitely,
Water is
definitely.
really nice.
Definitely. It's either gonna be a sweet well when I'm by myself it's usually gonna be a sweet tea, a Coke, or a water. I am a big Coca-Cola guy. There's a joke in my house that runs basically if there's a Coke can sitting right there, then and I walk past it, it's gonna teleport into my hands. Like that is the running joke in my house because like every single Sunday we have this dish called biryani that my mom makes at home, and a good Coke, cold, nice Coke goes well with it. So my mom just pulls it out of nowhere. And I'm like, where did you get the Coke from? And he's like, I'm not telling you, you're just gonna go raid the pantry and drink all of them in the next week. So,
Right.
yeah.
I
But
will
yeah,
say, like, specific shout out if the Coca-Cola Scholar people are listening. Like, Jesh really loves Coke. Just keep that in mind.
hopefully. I'm at this point, I guess knock on wood,
Right.
I would love that would be an honor. That would definitely be an honor. And speaking of, our love for Coke, with all of these amazing accomplishments, you yourself were able to earn the Coca-Cola Scholarship, a 2025 Coca-Cola Scholar. So how did all of this like process in your head, and how was that experience, traveling down to Atlanta and, meeting all these new people and being added to a crazy, crazy network?
Right. And so, like, I remember my flight was delayed and then it was canceled and then it was delayed again. And so I was the last Coke scholar to come to Coke weekend. And I actually missed, like, the banquet picture or, like, the full group picture,
Yes.
which I hated. I was like, you gotta Photoshop me in that. I don't know if they did that yet. But, just like walking into that room, there were like Coke scholars, like they were all standing, like they were like getting prepared so that we could walk out for like the banquet and stuff. And I was just like bombarded with like sweetness and like kindness. And like someone from like, I remember like there was someone like on my right, they were like, oh my God, we're so glad you made it. We heard your flight got delayed and then canceled. And then someone else was like, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. And then I remember there was like this other guy where he came up to me and he's like, wait, you're the Change.org top 25 Enter Change Maker of the Year, right? And I was like, I'm not special. I'm here for you guys. You guys are the ones that are like, whoa, like this is amazing. And then they're like doing that to me. And so I feel like for me, I just felt like so special, And I felt so nice being there surrounded by like these incredible youth individuals who have had so much success, in like, I don't know, in like 1/4 of their lifetime. And so I'm really just excited to see where they end up at. And I told all of them, like, if you're a CEO of like a company and stuff, save a spot for me. If you're the president of the United States, I got you. I can come into that White House and become your Secretary of State, And so like I'm just like so excited to see where they end up at. And honestly, like I know that they will be so successful and so amazing.
Definitely. I mean, obviously, with like past examples too, like Vivek Ramaswamy was a Koch scholar, and he ran for president, like you said. He ran for president, a part of the Republican nomination, like in the Republican, I forgot the word, but he did try running for president, and he is a, Koch scholar like the rest of y'all. And like you said, all of y'all, like for everyone that I have interviewed so far, super, super kind, super sweet, really just amazing people. Like reading y'all's bios, and then I was like, oh my God, the work that they've done, like I'm scared that they're going to be, different and, maybe not receive me as well. Also like going into like this like process and stuff, I was like halfway through, I started DMing everybody. Halfway through, I was like, oh shoot, y'all just came back from Coke like a month or two ago. Y'all are still very much in contact with each other, and y'all are gonna think I'm weirdos. And thankfully, y'all took a chance on me, and I'm super duper grateful for each and every single one of y'all, like genuinely from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, I will tell you, we still have like our Coke group chat is like still up and running, and it's like it's super active. Like
Definitely.
I like open my scholars group chat, it's like 75 text messages, and I'm like, I cannot read all of that. But I will tell you, the people who we do think are like we don't really want to interact with you are the people who like immediately come into like our DMs or like our like LinkedIn like messages and stuff, and they're like, hi, my name is blah 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 blah, can you please read this essay for me and edit it, can you please help me with this application, can you please do this and that and that. And we're just like, we don't even know you,
Know you
you know.
exactly.
So like for you to like reach out to us, and I heard about you from Taz.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, I heard about you from Taz. She's like, you're so sweet and stuff. But
definitely.
like you reached out to us and you had a mission. You were so passionate about what you were doing, and you're so
Thank you.
mature for your age. So I will tell you, definitely no making fun of happening in the group chat. We love you.
Thank you, thank you. That really does, mean a lot to me. I'll tell you, I was expecting like two or three responses. I was expecting like a few responses, but I wasn't expecting this much, love and support from all of y'all, and it really does mean a lot. This is a passion. I like talking to people. I like, y'all are connections that y'all are people that need their voices to be heard, which is the whole point of the podcast. Like you said, the Iowa board did not listen to you until the adults stepped in. The youth, we are, even though we're under the age of 18 or like, under the age of like adult, we're still like human at the end of the day. Like we have voices that want to be heard too,
Right.
So I definitely, and y'all are people that are passionate and show that passion through your day-to-day life. So definitely, y'all are an amazing bunch, and I truly, truly thank each and every single one of y'all. Definitely. So, at the end of all of this, you met all these Coca-Cola scholars, but in your opinion, why do you believe you were a Coke scholar?
For me personally, I don't know. I really don't know, to be completely honest. I was actually shocked that I was even a regional finalist. I thought that I didn't get in because the email went into my spam folder, and I was looking at all of those like LinkedIn posts where they were like, oh my God, so excited to be a Coke like regional finalist, blah blah blah. And so I was like, that means I didn't get it. Like, that's fine. Like, I didn't, like, I really wanted it, but like, it's fine. Lo and behold, I opened my spam folder literally the next day, because I was looking for a different email, not even the Coke email, right? And then they were like, and then I was like, oh my God, I'm a Coke's, like, I'm a regional finalist. And so then after that, then for the Coca-Cola Scholars email, instead of, because for all of our other emails for semifinalists and regional, we got congratulations, you're a blah, blah, blah. For Coca-Cola Scholars, I had status update. And so I was like, oh no, I got rejected. And it was in the middle of like my AP research class. And so and then I was like, oh my God, I'm a Coca-Cola scholar. What? And I was like so excited. I was like jumping up and down. And then I brought myself down, and I'm like, this is so embarrassing. I can't believe I just did that. But
You know,
I was like so
that's
excited.
That's really ironic because I'm pretty sure I was talking one of the other interviews I did. I can't really pinpoint the name specifically. Can't remember, but it was the exact same situation in AP research class. They got the
Really?
email that they were a Coke scholar and the exact same reaction.
That's
That's
crazy.
that's uncanny. That's super uncanny. Like in AP research, both like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Definitely. But obviously that is a very well reaction to why you are a Coke scholar, and I can see why you are a Coke scholar. You are very passionate for what you do in public policy and fighting for change for your community in Iowa and then nationally with all these new startups which you're doing, like the Voices of the Nile and with Pulse. And obviously you were a US SYP, and then the NSC campaign, I really feel like is what, you know, that sticks out the most about you to me. That is, especially at such a young age, like I've mentioned multiple times, I was playing basketball outside as 8 and 11-year-olds, still passionately trying to become the next LeBron James. I wasn't thinking about, life like that. So I can personally see why you are a Coca-Cola, and you are 100% worthy of where you are in your life. And definitely, definitely. And to round out this interview, as the Voice for You podcast is about, empowering the voices of today and tomorrow, that is the tagline. So what is some advice that you can give, either me or the audience members, or just anybody in general trying to be a leader in their own community and want to achieve greatness like you have in your own?
Yeah, so I think being a leader is identifying a problem within your community and solving it and uplifting your community for the sake of your community, not for the sake of college apps, not for the sake of personal pride, but simply for the sake of bettering your community. I think that's the biggest thing that distinguishes between a leader and someone who's just trying to rack up stuff for their resume, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think a piece of advice that I would give to everyone is be passionate about what you're doing. Do things because you are passionate about them. Be persistent, because persistence is your key to success. And finally, be resilient, because rejection will come. Because you will be disappointed, you will want to give up. But at the end of the day, it's resilience that allows you to go over that obstacle and continue with your project. And you never know, it might be the biggest thing that you've ever done in your entire life.
Definitely, definitely. That's something a lot of people have said. I have preached this multiple times. You can send out 20 different, emails to like people asking for something. 19 of them can say no, but that one message saying yes can change the world. Like one yes is enough to make a huge change in your life and other people's lives. To obviously you are a master in the marketing scheme, reaching out to as many people as possible. You probably have had your own, fair share of rejections, over time, and adversity thrown at you. But, what makes you a leader is pushing to be the best person you can be. So I definitely, it's truly, truly admiring hearing your story, from a 10-year-old receiving death threats for just doing something that she believes is right and whatnot. But definitely. But thank you so much, Reem, for, hopping on the podcast, sharing your story, your passions, and what you've done in your life. It truly is inspiring, and it means a lot to me that you were able to come and share this story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out.
Definitely, definitely. And to the viewers, thank you so much to watching to the very end. Remember to follow the Voice for You podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. And once again, I'm your host, Jesh Vana. Thank you so much, Reem, for hopping on the podcast, and I will see y'all next time. Thank you so much.